Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of This Week in Niche Pursuits News. And this is a huge episode because thousands of Google search documents have leaked. And a lot of these API documents, as they're called, sort of reveal a lot about the Google search algorithm and how SEO works. I would call it unprecedented. More information has been leaked than ever before. And so we have a lot of insight into how search works and how Google is programmed, although not directly. These are supporting documents with a lot of notes about the algorithm. It provides a ton of clues, like I said, more than we've ever had before. And so that really is the main story that we're going to jump into. We've got a response from official, Google spokesperson talking about this leak. Google has confirmed that these supporting search documents are valid. This is an actual leak. And so we're going to dig into it. We're going to dig into what does this mean for publishers? What does this tell us about SEO? And a big one is, what does this tell us about the history of Google and the lies, the things that they've said they don't look at, that they actually do look at? Okay, and so we're going to jump into each of those items, things that they're using to rank websites, that at least they have supporting documents. Their algorithm is sort of specified in a way that do mention all of these things. And so that's where we're going to spend the bulk of our time here today. But toward the end, Jared and I are going to jump in and talk about our own side projects that we have going on. We're going to talk about a couple of weird niche sites, keep it a little bit more fun and lighthearted towards the end, but we're going to start with the heavy stuff. So having said that, Jared, welcome to the show. How you doing this week?
Oh boy, the WikiLeaks, the Edward Snowden of the SEO industry. Here we go. I'm well, and I'm glad I'm back home to do this one because you're right. This is going to be a big podcast. I don't know how we're going to fit it all in our usual time.
Right, exactly. There's a lot to cover, a ton to cover. So I will just give a shout out to Mike King of iPullRank.com and Rand Fishkin of SparkToro.com. A lot of people know Rand Fishkin has been in the SEO world for a long time, but actually kind of left the day-to-day sort of SEO world, if you will, many years ago. But somebody, and we have his name now. I don't have it pulled up in front of me at the moment.
I can find it if you want.
Yeah, he's the one that actually leaked sort of these documents, and he gave it to Mike King. Efren Azimi.
Yeah, I hope I'm saying that correctly.
Yeah, he's somebody that's been in the SEO industry, and apparently there was, I won't go into all the details, but apparently there was obviously some sort of mistake. They saved these API documentation on a public repository that anybody could access instead of privately. So Google themselves makes mistakes that run by employees. And while they were up publicly, somebody was able to copy all those, and now it's essentially all public information, even though they've tried to make it private since that point. But what these are, again, are supporting documents to their algorithm, essentially like a big GitHub repository, right? GitHub is a place where, you put all the code to a search algorithm or any other sort of software product. And then there can be a lot of supporting documents that explain, okay, here's what this code means. Here's what this part of the code means, yada, 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 yada. And because Google search is so big, there's like thousands of supporting documents. So we're talking about, I think it was 14,000 supporting documents. So this is not a small leak. So to sort of
2,500 technical documents, and 14,000. What was that? No, that number was something. Yeah, these are huge.
Yeah, 14,000 attributes or something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, exactly.
So this is huge. This is more than like you can just read over a weekend, right? Like just to read through all of it, and then let alone sort of interpret what all of this means. So Mike, he stayed up for like 48 hours over the weekend, and others digging into what all of this means, because it's partially like in code. It just says, okay, there's like a reference for, call it PageRank, right? And then PageRank does this, and it doesn't actually give the code itself. It's, again, just notes about the code. And so there's a lot to cover. It's gonna be, sort of, some of it's surface level, but we're gonna try and draw a lot of conclusions for what this means for the SEO industry and what this means for small publishers in particular, people that maybe have been hit by the helpful content update or other algorithm updates, or people that have been listening to Google throughout the years. And maybe we can shed some light on, were they actually being accurate? Do you ever get stuck in your business and wish you had someone you could turn to for solutions? Well, I think you should consider joining the Niche Pursuits community. You'll get weekly calls with experts on growing a successful online business, and you'll also get assigned a small mastermind group where you can solve your business problems as well as share your wins. For a limited time, I'll let you try out the Niche Pursuits community for just $1. Go ahead and use coupon code PODCAST at checkout in order to get your first month for just $1. Again, that's coupon code PODCAST. Go to community.nichepursuits.com today and see what it's all about. And maybe I'll see you on our call next week. Thanks a lot. So, having said all that, again, I'm just sharing the screen of Mike King from iPulledRank.com. Secrets from the algorithm. Google search internal engineering documentation has leaked. And I would recommend that you read this entire article. It is quite lengthy, right? But there's a few things that I just want to pull out on top. I think it sort of just makes sense to hit them hard, right? Let's hit Google hard. As he says, the API docs reveal some notable Google lies. And so let's just touch on those because throughout the years, many Google spokespeople have said, no, we don't have anything like domain authority, or no, we don't have anything, about XYZ. These documents make it very clear that they do have something like domain authority and other things that we're going to hit on a few of those. So for many, years, they said, no, we don't use anything like a domain authority. Moz has a domain authority. Ahrefs has a domain rating. But internally, we don't use anything like that. The authority of your domain doesn't matter. Well, turns out it actually does matter, right? It's not called domain authority, but in the documents, it has something called site authority, right? And so we can see that they do indeed use something called site authority that we know definitely plays into the search algorithm overall. Another thing that they said is we don't use clicks for rankings, right? But along the way, we've covered it in the DOJ antitrust trial. There's been documents that have come out and indeed showed that they do use clicks for rankings and user data for rankings. And all throughout these leaked documents, it shows evidence of them using their nav boost system, of using, sort of click data to help rank and boost their algorithm, right? And throughout the years, they've said things like dwell time, click-through rate, and other things are mostly made up crap, right?
And more than that, on this one in particular, there's so much, not just of lies, but in this case, documented evidential proof where Google and Google employees are just flat out shaming Rand Fishkin in particular about this. And this has been Rand's baby, kind of brainchild for a long time. Well, before anybody was, I think, really onto this, Rand's been promoting that clicks have a measurable impact on rankings. Well, before we learned what we learned from the DOJ antitrust. So this one's a bit of a moot point, but this one also is more flagrant because, yes, Google's denied so many of these things, i.e. lies. This one, they've gone into like public shaming, which is embarrassing for them. It's more embarrassing than just cover up. This is just flat out immaturity.
Yeah. And, again, I'll just reference people over to sparktoro.com and read Rand Fishkin's response. Long story short, he's kind of over it, like he's over sort of SEO and being super involved in the SEO industry for, 5, 6, 7 years, whatever it is at this point. But this is a big enough leak that he came back and he wrote this. and sort of responded a little bit to what you just referenced, that, hey, he has been sort of making a lot of case studies and claims showing that click data and other things have been used for a long time. And so this is sort of like his moment of like redemption in a way of like, see,
It
I told you guys, I've been telling you this for years, even though Google has been saying otherwise for years. This sort of verifies what I've been saying all along. So I agree with you that I think it's very relevant and important that we at least point that out. Okay.
keep
But
going, keep going.
the documents
So many
themselves,
lies to discuss, Spencer.
yeah, I mean, so this is just a screenshot. If people can see this, just to give you an idea of the type of things that were leaked. Like it just gives a little bit of information, right? But we know that they rely on things like bad clicks, good clicks, last longest clicks, unsquashed clicks, unsquashed impressions, right? We don't know what all of these means, but we know a little bit, right? They give some notes, but we know enough to know that they definitely are using clicks and click data in their search algorithm, right? So the other one that is kind of funny is there is no sandbox, right? John Mueller has literally said in somebody's questions, hey, usually how long does it take to relieve from the Google sandbox for a new website, right? We've all thought for years that you have a brand new website. Sometimes it takes 3 months, 6 months before you get out of like this sandbox of Google. And it's always been sort of lore or legend. Google's denied it. John Mueller, there is no sandbox, but literally within their search documentation, um, it it has something called an attribute called host age that is used specifically to quote to sandbox fresh spam in serving time. It's just funny that not only do they not have something kind of called sandbox, they actually refer to it as the sandbox, and then they denied it. It's pretty blatant, in my opinion.
It's hard to add much commentary to it. It really is. Like, I think this might be just a good time to step in and say, with all these things, what's so funny is I got asked yesterday, and Spencer, I'm sure this has come up for you in a conversation at some point, like, hey, do these leaks, we'll get into, the algorithm versus what these leaks are just a little bit to touch on it, but do these leaks change anything about the way you do SEO? And my answer is not really, because most of the stuff we all knew. And if you're good at, this space, like, you've learned to not always really take everything Google says at face value. Not to say everything they say is lies, but you don't always believe it blindly. So the data from all the testing so far has proven all these things wrong. Now we just have kind of documentation of it. So if you're sitting there going like, well, I always knew the sandbox was a thing because I can't ever get my site to get any clicks in the first 3 to 6 months. And yes, this is more of a validation for many things you might already know than it is some groundbreaking revelation. The groundbreaking revelation is that it's documented and now we get to see it.
Yep. I generally agree with you that it's not going to change significantly how we structure an article or, what we do for SEO purposes. Other than, hey, we do know that quality content is important in terms of the longer people stick around, the more they click to your website and don't click back, like all of that data actually matters to Google. The one sort of thing that I will say that may or may not change anything, but certainly is one area where you could try to get a little bit more aggressive.
Yes, I know where you're going with this.
Is certainly sending more traffic, right, to your website through other means, right? Whether it's like if you have a Facebook page and you can send a bunch of traffic to an article that might have the potential to rank in Google for something, like all of that click data, and if you get a bunch of users over there and they kind of stick around, right? Like that's all really, really great data. So you actually driving traffic to your articles, that can help, right? And now that's something we know for sure. I mean, it's always sort of been rumored, but that's maybe just one thing I would.
That's a good point.
Consider.
No, that's a good point. I think that perhaps that expands on that what you just said kind of expands on it. That like you can have more assurances about going forward with some of the ideas that you might have thought played a role, but now have more assurance that they play a role.
Yeah, exactly. And I won't name names. Somebody that you and I both know that we both really respect a lot, that has sort of used this sort of strategy to drive traffic from other places. And I just tell you what, his very SEO friendly website is one of the fastest scaling websites I've maybe ever seen. And I know behind the scenes, not only was he publishing a lot of SEO content, but he was driving a ton of traffic from other sources.
Correct.
And that sort of supports all of what I'm seeing here. So
correct. Yeah, if it's popular elsewhere, eventually you can almost force trigger popularity through the algorithm of Google.
Right. And that's a lot easier said than done, right? Like, I wish I could snap my fingers.
It's not a couple clicks from Reddit like you're about to talk about later on in the podcast, huh?
That's right. Hey, anytime you tie in Reddit with SEO,
it's a good point.
Know that Google loves it. So,
and don't forget to mention the UGC stuff that came out in this document. So
that is right. So let's go through a couple of more of these lies. Google also said, we don't use anything from Chrome for ranking. Again, a lot of this kind of came through the DOJ trial, right? They actually are using Chrome, and I don't remember what the attribute was. Oh, here it is. Chrome in total, site level Chrome views. So we know that their documentation, they are using Chrome data. I don't know if any of this gets Google into even more legal hot water.
Heck yeah.
That's not for me. I'm not an attorney, right? But
hot water, I don't know if it's actually like could be convicted upon, but it can't make the water cooler for them. I guess let me just put it that way. It's got to only increase the temperature around the water that they're stuck in, right?
Adds fuel to the fire,
right?
That's exactly what it does, right?
Anything, I don't know, but it can't make their life easier.
Right. It's not going to get any attorneys off their back.
Correct.
With all
like,
of this.
Dang it. The DOJ case, we got to throw the whole thing out now.
Right. Exactly. So, okay, Google spokespeople are well-meaning, but can we trust them? This is just an interesting, sort of side note.
What's your take on this? You kind of know Danny from history. You guys, I don't expect you guys are like text buddies or anything like that, but like these are people that are respected for what they do. And these are people that now have screenshots everywhere with their face in the mud. And, what do you think about maybe Mike's comment, which is Google spokespeople are well-meaning, but can we trust them?
Yeah. What is the phrase, sort of the Manchurian candidate, right? It almost feels like, I wonder if Danny Sullivan and others are put into this position that they're the liaison, but they really don't know the inner workings of Google, right? They might know a little bit more, and they have meetings every once in a while with some people from the SEO team, but have they ever seen any of these documents? Probably not, is my guess. I don't know. It's all conjecture, but that's one theory, that they're more just kind of a public face and they really don't know the inner workings of Google. And so they've done their best to be truthful. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt here, that at least somebody like Danny, I don't know about John Mueller.
Yeah.
He seems, anyway, so I won't say what he seems like, but so it's possible that they truly just have never known all the answers to SEO, and they've just answered to the best of their own abilities. Or there is the darker side where they truly are just lying to us and trying to cover things up.
If you read Danny's kind of diatribes over the last, call it 6 to 9 months, I will echo that it feels increasingly like he really doesn't know much about what's actually happening. He knows what he's being told, and he knows his job, which is to pass along feedback and share information that's been given to him. That's what it feels like, right? If you read his tweets,
it does.
Especially of late,
that's what it feels like.
I'm passing this along, guys. Look, here's proof I'm passing it along. It doesn't feel like it's like, hey guys, I'm the authoritative voice here. And so that does feel that's a very fair statement, I think, to make about Danny. And the other ones, I wouldn't say their commentary echoes that, but certainly with Danny, I think that we can at least safely conjecture about that.
What does this do, though, the relationship going forward between SEOs and Google spokespeople? Like, what does this do to the relationship? Like, I I think maybe it was Barry Schwartz actually had a Twitter poll of like, will you believe anything that Google spokespeople say in the future? And it was like 90 something percent was like, no. And I clicked the no button.
How
Not
could you?
necessarily, not necessarily because it, either way, if they're lying to me, boldface, or they just don't know the information, like either way, I always am going to take what they say with a grain of salt going forward.
And unfortunately, you're being nice. I don't think anyone's going to, I mean, a grain of salt would be complimentary at this point, like you'd be, if like, as the owner of a business, you'd be fiduciarily irresponsible if you went back to your board, went back to your shareholders and said, we are doing this because Google said to do it this way, when there's a mountain of evidence that would suggest you shouldn't do that, right? So it would actually be unwise to follow their advice after this mountain of evidence.
Man, this is like got to be one of the worst situations possible for the Google search team, the liaison team, right? Because they know there's not going to be any trust. And so as web publishers, like who do we go to? And my brain immediately goes to the fact that, well, we need to actually be listening to people that are out testing and doing and sharing their results, right? I don't want to name names and say, go follow them or listen to what they say, but you got to be really careful because there's like great people, all, Mike King and Rand Fishkin, right? Like these are well-established people. Lily Ray, right? The people that are in the weeds doing tests, sharing broad data, appear to be honest. But then you get like Black Hat Forum, right? On the other end, where that's like maybe spammers that are doing things. And it's like, you always got to be careful who you listen to. But like, I would, after this, certainly put a lot more weight into actual SEOs doing the work, getting their feet, or getting their hands dirty instead of just somebody at Google.
It goes full circle back to our conversation last week when we kind of dissected the interview with the Google CEO. And one of the points the Google CEO discussed that we talked about was how they, at this point, are not going to probably have AI overview information in terms of clicks and that sort of stuff in Google Search Console. And they kind of alluded to the fact that we don't want to give too much information away because it could be then spammed or used adversely against the algorithm, right? And we talked about that last week and kind of the pickle that Google's in terms of providing transparency, but then knowing that they have situations they have to deal with when they're transparent. And that's a reality, right? We understand that. But unfortunately, they are just getting caught week in, week out with the negative effects of not being transparent. And it's a difficult situation to be in, but it hasn't been stewarded well. And this is another week where they're now caught in it, where the negatives of not being transparent are probably I would say, worse than what would have happened on the other side, I guess.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's just like negative PR week after negative PR week for Google. Another sort of fun term now is twiddlers.
Oh, yeah.
Google.
We can add that to my favorite SEO words to use, like canonicalization.
Oh, somebody get the domain. Who owns twiddlers.com? Hurry, go buy that, somebody. But they've got these what are called twiddlers in the documentation that are like tweaks, right? Like that sort of boost or demote certain things. And do they have some specific examples? I mean, they've got nav boost, quality boost, real-time boost, web image boost, right? That's sort of based on different things, right? Will tweak how your site's ranking up or down. And so there's several twiddlers that they refer to throughout the documentation. And some of those, I think this is called a twiddler, is like the exact match domain was like, maybe, I don't know if that was specifically a twiddler, but like back in the day, they added something to their algorithm to demote exact match domains so that if you had that keyword in your domain, you actually would not rank as high. That was sort of like a twiddler, if you will. I was trying to think of an example, but
I have a good example for a topic we need to address.
Okay.
And maybe I'll transition it now and say, oh my goodness, as it relates to the audience, that listens to the Niche Pursuits podcast, one of the big things that ended up in here related to Twiddlers, but separate from it, is this concept of small personal site.
Yes.
Now,
yes.
Did you see this in there? And can we talk about this?
Here we go. I just wanted to get down to the section. Yes, Google may be torching small sites on purpose. So within the documentation, and this is really interesting because I have never heard of this or thought of this before, but they actually have a tag here or an attribute here for small personal site. And it just says score of small personal site promotion, go/promoting personal blogs. We don't know exactly what it means, but it's clearly defined as a small personal site. And he mentions, right, considering the backlash and the small businesses that have been torched by the helpful content update, it's a wonder that they use this feature. It's a wonder that they use this feature to do something about it, right? And so we don't really know exactly how this impacts sites, but it does almost feel like there is something specifically in the algorithm that targets small personal sites, right? Sites that are maybe single author or maybe, are not clearly a news organization, that appear to be just a personal blog, which I have a lot of thoughts about this. It maybe is getting a tweak in the algorithm and being demoted, right? Like it's clearly being categorized as such. And elsewhere in the documentation, it appeared that maybe there may be different positions, right? Where if there's a certain number of small personal sites, right, you only allow slots for 2, right, or 3 or whatever it may be. So in that effect, you may be getting demoted, right, because you have a small personal site. What are your thoughts, Jared? What do you have to say about this?
Yeah, we don't know how it's being used. We don't know if it's being used. We know it's in there.
Yeah.
It is fun to break it down a bit, because like Google chose these words, small and personal. Small, how do we define small? But it certainly is different than big. We've talked on the podcast at length about how big sites keep winning. And it's not just our opinions. It's documented in almost every algorithm update for the last couple of years, how big sites keep getting bigger in terms of their traffic. So interesting. Small loses update over update. We've noticed this, and then here it is in this documentation. Personal. Now, personal isn't a term I think we've ever used before, but boy, does it accurately fit the types of sites that have gotten rocked by HCU. Sites that don't have a business platform on it. We've talked to throw ecom. If you got an ecom, your local business, you seem to escape. I can vouch for this at my agency and the clients that we work on. If you're just an affiliate, if you're just an ad revenue site, if all these things we've kind of looked at feel very like a personal site, or what you accurately kind of said earlier as blog. So again, it's one of those things where if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, I don't know. It feels so connected to the HCU. And then tying this back to your comment on Twiddler, once they've kind of categorized sites as small personal sites, you could then, in theory, from my understanding of it, and correct me if I'm wrong, anyone, because I only have a day or two on this, but you could then use a Twiddler that would either demote or boost sites with these tags on them, right? And so that would be where that might come into play from our understanding through the documentation.
Yeah. And tied closely to this is something called Baby Panda. And it's in the documentation. It's called Baby Panda Demotion, right? And there's a V2, new Baby Panda Demotion. Anyways, so it appears that, and this is also a Twiddler, right? So it's almost as though, and I don't know if these work together, right? Like maybe you're categorized as a small personal site, and if yes, apply Baby Panda yes or no, right? Depending on certain things. So it's almost like, hey, you fit into this category of small personal site, and if you do, then you have the potential to get demoted with this Baby Panda. And of course, Panda came out in like 2011. I remember when it came out, it was devastating to a lot of people. And it primarily targeted content quality, thin content, poor quality, right?
Spun content was
Spun,
a big one of that.
copied, spun or copied content, exactly.
Duplicate,
Um,
yeah.
was hit pretty hard, and so what that means is up for interpretation, right? But it appears that maybe this baby panda, this new panda demotion is tied with the helpful content update. At least, Mike King is kind of making this connection here, and it could potentially make sense because of the types of sites that we've seen get hit, right? It's like the individual bloggers, the people. I'll just do my final rant here. I've done this like almost every week, but it's like, goodness, if Google wants to get over these bad PR weeks, would you just promote some like small mom and pop shops, like the people that are actual creators, the stories you can get behind and root for, right? It's like, you want the mom blog, you want the the guy that travels to 50 countries on his own and documents it, like the one man shop. Like, this is what America roots for, or the world for that matter, right? Is like, you want the small guy to win, instead of all these big sites, the Forbes, the Reddits, the Quoras, the major corporations that are doing really well in Google. And it feels like, I mean, Google is picking on the little guy instead of like actually promoting the individual voices. And now we have documentation that appears to support this rant that I keep going on, right? Is that all these little sites got hit in the helpful content update, right? They've got this baby panda demotion happening. We've got this small personal site tag that is a real thing. It's like, come on, Google. If you want to improve your image and improve your results for that matter, get some original creators and rank their websites. Like, that's the kind of content that we want to be reading. So,
Spencer, I
rant
only
over
disagree
for
with
now.
you on one thing there.
All right.
You no longer can refer to them as the little guy. They shall now be referred to as the small personal guy.
That's right. The small personal guy.
Google's out to
there
get
you
the
go.
small personal guy.
It's for real. I need to.
It's not even a joke, actually. I mean, I guess you can't say that for certain, but I mean, that's what they're calling them. Let's put it that way.
It's sad, and you and I, we try to smile.
We try.
We have a good time here on the podcast. But I will just say, like, even this week, I've gotten a couple of emails from people that it's heartbreaking to hear their stories. Right? These are small creators that have done really well full time for years, that their traffic has gone to essentially nothing. And it's because of things like we're seeing in this documentation of Google. And I mean, it hurts me to see that. All right. There's a lot more that we could go through. I think there was one other thing that you had mentioned, Jared, that you kind of found super interesting.
Oh, yeah.
So
there's a lot of good
maybe
stuff
we'll talk
in there.
about that.
There's stuff about page quality. That's worth looking at. There's a couple other things in terms of indexing. We talked about host stage. There's navigational experience stuff in there. There's spam penalties. We're not going to get to the UGC stuff today. It was not minor, but I wouldn't say a prominent part of it. But go look at the UGC stuff. Something I thought was really cool to see is site radius. This is, in essence, a lot of what I kind of, in many ways, wrote about in my Search Engine Land article. I didn't write about site radius, to be clear, but it was some of the concepts that were in this. Basically, this concept of site radius is this idea of how closely tied your content is as it goes across your entire website. What I wrote down is it indicates how much of the content of individual pages deviates from the site's primary topic. A smaller radius means the site is tightly focused, while a larger radius indicates a broader range of topics. I mean, I don't want to overstep, and I don't want to like draw too many conclusions because we don't know how this is actually being rolled out in the algorithm. But I mean, if you want to talk about topical authority, you want to talk about strain from your topical authority, you want to talk about what that looks like, here's some language that we can start to actually use now to at least phrase it in the way Google thinks about it, right? So topical authority is a big topic. It's a big buzzword. It's a big phrase that gets debated a lot. And we haven't talked about it in a little while, but hey, that's in there too. So definitely, do some more digging on site radius if you have your thoughts and you want to know more about what they think about that.
Yeah. And it's a fascinating topic because I've always sort of talked about, having very tight focused niche websites, right? Like that's kind of been my whole theory when I started is like, okay, if I can create one website on one subject or one core subject, it should, in theory, do better in Google because you become this authority in Google. And so going all the way back to 2011 when I quit my job, that's sort of been my thing,
Yeah.
right? I didn't call it site radius or whatever, but
Well,
when I think niche sites in my mind, that's what I'm thinking about is like, let's only talk about backyard games and that's it, right? Or whatever it is.
and they have more in there. They have site radius, they have site focus score, they have site embeddings, they have page. There's a lot that ties together. And again, I'll just kind of leave it this broad thing. Like it's so weird to see documentation that would seem to support this idea of having a tight site radius, having a tight topical focus. And we have this small personal site. I'm using the word tag. It's not a tag. It's attribute would be a better way to describe it.
Yeah.
And it's so weird to watch the niche site community get yo-yoed around inside of this document. It's like, hey, if you're not going to be a big site, stay on topic. We got stuff in here for you. Oh, but you're not a big site, so we got stuff to kind of demote you. And it is a yo-yo experience to be in this space, and it feels yo-yo-ish when you kind of look at this, whether it's right or wrong. We think it's wrong, obviously, but it's certainly yo-yos a lot in terms of what they want to reward when you're in that space, like we talk about a lot.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy because it's kind of like, all right, you guys have figured out that having a site around a tight focus, a tight site radius is the right thing to do well in Google. Well, because you figured that out, we're going to have a site demotion because you're a personal site and not some major corporation. It's just doesn't make a lot of logical sense, in my opinion.
Yeah. When you get in the world of machine learning and releasing updates that are unexplainable to some degree, like you can kind of start to see like, oh, well, maybe that's because there's enough conflict in the algorithm. And again, I'm not going to get into it because that's a whole podcast for itself. But
yeah,
you start to see the complexities here.
Absolutely. So again, there is so much in
like
all of these documents.
Like ping-ponging all over the map here today, trying to 14,000 attributes, 2,500 pages. Lots to try to summarize in 30 minutes. But hey, I don't know, not bad. You worked a couple rants in.
I even worked a couple rants in. Maybe the last thing, right? Because Google did respond to this.
Good point.
One is that they did confirm that these are real. These documents are real. So it's an accurate assessment of kind of what we've been talking about. But here's the quote, and I'll leave it to you. A Google spokesperson sent this. That's just funny because we literally 5 minutes ago were talking about whether or not we should listen to Google spokespeople. But we'll read this quote anyways. It says, "We would caution against making inaccurate assumptions about search based on out of context, outdated, or incomplete information. We've shared extensive information about how search works and the types of factors that our systems weigh, while also working to protect the integrity of our results from manipulation." So there you go. That is their response. Do what you will with that quote.
Hey everyone, Spencer here, founder of Niche Pursuits. Are you adding a new internal link pointing to each article you publish? You should be. Ever find it time-consuming and a bit overwhelming? Remembering what content you published and deciding which anchor text to use can be a real headache. What if there was a better way? Well, that's exactly why I created Link Whisper. Simply click Add Inbound Internal Links, and Link Whisper will scan your site in seconds and suggest the most relevant links with appropriate anchor text for your new article. Now simply check the box next to the internal links you want to add, and Link Whisper will add these links for you. No need to go into each article, edit, and add the link. It's already done. No more manual internal link building or guesswork. Just efficient, accurate linking that saves you time and improves your SEO. Transform your content strategy with Link Whisper. Start linking smarter, not harder. Use the coupon code PODCAST for $15 off. Head over to linkwhisper.com and use coupon code PODCAST to get $15 off.
That's all I have to say.
Yep. I mean, I get it, but yeah, it doesn't help much.
Yeah, not a lot of help. So, all right. Well, we'll probably be referencing this for who knows years. SEOs may be talking about this, right?
Yeah. What do you think about the theory, Spencer, to close it out, and then we'll move on, that they actually purposely allowed this to go out so they could cover up all their other PR mistakes that have bigger implications for their stock price, like the disastrous AI overviews rollout?
I haven't heard that theory, but I find it
We've got to work
far-fetched.
one conspiracy theory into this podcast.
Yeah, why not? Maybe there's Sundar's pulling the strings behind the scenes,
master
leak
puppet.
this, and it's all wrong. Leak these 14,000 documents that are all wrong.
Hey, he's got you looking at the right hand while he's moving the left hand. I don't know. I don't buy into that either, but I have heard that on multiple occasions.
I don't buy it. So, oh man, that's a big news story for sure. But we are going to kind of wrap it up with a little bit more lighthearted here in terms of, I'll just jump in and I'll share one side project that I've been working on. I've been talking about the last few weeks. Is I do have a niche site that's been more of an experiment site because of all the craziness in Google. I tried to build a site that doesn't require any traffic from Google. I'd still love them to send me traffic, but I'm really just focusing on two things: Facebook and Reddit right now. And I've kind of shared what I've been doing, over the last months. And Facebook, I've got something like 50,000 page followers. And so we post 3, 4, 5 times a day on our Facebook page, with a couple of those being a link to an article on our actual website. So a few of them might be just engagement things, trying to keep the Facebook page engaged. And then twice a day, essentially, during the weekday, we'll actually post an article, hopefully that's interesting, gets engagement, sends a lot of traffic. I make money with display ads. That's the business model for right now. But recently just added Reddit to that and have started to see some nice gains. Some of my articles have been doing well on Reddit. In fact, one day got like 11,000 visitors in a single day from Reddit. And I just released a whole video on that on the YouTube channel. So if people want to watch that, it's on the Niche Pursuits, the main YouTube channel. But I just thought it would be interesting because I hit a little benchmark here of over 50,000 page views for the month.
There it is.
So in the last 30 days, I'm sitting at 55,000 page views, right? And you can see these spikes. Most of these, I don't know if most, but 3 or 4 of them are Reddit, right? Like this one here, and then this 11,000 one, and this day after was pretty much all Reddit. And then this latest one on the 26th, just a couple days ago, is a combination. Like I got a couple thousand from Reddit, I got a couple thousand from Facebook, right? Like in the same day, they each sent 2,000 or 3,000 visitors or more. It looks like I had about 8,000 visitors that day. And so they're starting to work in tandem a little bit. And it's not always the same stories that take off on Facebook that take off on Reddit. Sometimes they're different for whatever reason. The audience just responds a little bit different. They get traction in different places. And so it at least looks like I'm starting to hit on a strategy where I can at least get a few articles to hit on each. And if I can keep it above 50,000 page views in a month, I should be able to get approved for Mediavine, hopefully pretty soon. Because right now I'm just on Ezoic. Like honestly, I log into Ezoic maybe once a month just to see. But like the RPMs are so low there, it's almost embarrassing to even share, right? Like I think my big day, like I made like $50 or something, this big spike. And it's just like I haven't really optimized anything. I just kind of turned it on. I'm really have just been waiting so I can finally get on Mediavine or Raptive or some, main ad network, and the RPM should double. Right, maybe even more than that.
Now you applied for Mediavine Journey. Can you?
I did.
I wonder if this is a strategy. If there, this isn't for the record, but I'm joking when I say this. But I wonder if the strategy is Mediavine's like, yeah, apply for Journey when you're at 10,000, and we'll watch and see which sites actually continue growing, and then we'll just let you in when you hit 50, anyways.
Maybe
because you've hit 50 in what, a month and a half since you applied at the 10,000 traffic mark, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's been probably close to a month and a half.
I mean, that's a
ago
trajectory. That is a trajectory.
Yeah, and it's and again, it's spiky. Like I have had a 50,000 page view month a few months ago where I had like 2 articles I think take off on just Facebook, but it does feel like now I'm getting a little bit more consistent, right? Like once or twice a week now I'm starting to have articles that are doing better. And so I'm really hopeful that this will be sustainable going forward and throughout the summer. So that's what I'm doing. The only thing I'll just say, sort of my plans, is that I think posting frequency, we could be posting a little bit more frequently in both places. And so if we, call it double the frequency per day that we're posting, like we might be able to double the traffic. So I am going to start trying to post a little bit more frequently, get a process in place to make that happen. And of course, I'll share the results, in a few weeks or whenever that is.
Well, 50,000, views at a moderate but totally reasonable RPM on a Mediavine of like $20. That's $1,000 website right there.
Yeah,
$1,000 per month. I mean, that's a milestone so many people look to reach, and you've done that in a few short months with non-Google traffic.
Yeah. So there you go. And that would be the goal, right? Is like if I can just get it to like $1,000 or $1,500 a month, like suddenly that becomes like enough to be self-sustaining, where I can be posting, I can hire out, and somebody else just doing everything. And hopefully it just becomes a growing engine, more of a flywheel at that point, where it's paying for itself and just growing. So
yeah, it's a great point. You get it to something like that $1,000 a month mark, you can hire someone, whether it's part-time, full-time, depending on where you're going to look and what skill sets you need and all that. But you can start to actually block out money to outsource to get help. And then it creates a flywheel effect because now you have someone who can do more.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my update. How about you? What's happening with your side projects here?
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm dipping back into the Amazon Influencer Program discussion today.
Okay, nice.
You might have noticed we didn't address it. We just kind of flew right into it. Actually, a little bit of technical difficulties last week. But last week I recorded. You probably noticed I was not. If you're on YouTube, I was not in my usual spot. I was waiting for someone to comment on the painting behind me. If you really want, go back and look at that. It was a very interesting.
I remember that. I didn't bring it up.
You didn't bring it up. Probably smart. You don't want to get those words in the video and then get the video,
hot water,
Speaking of hot water. So anyways, we'll leave that where it's at. But I was at like a mastermind meetup. And so I was in an Airbnb. Now, I've talked about this before. My best-selling Amazon influencer product during the Q4 sales season last year was something I filmed at a cabin or an Airbnb on our 201 Creative Company retreat earlier that year. Airbnbs or rentals give you an opportunity to go to someone else's house and use someone else's Amazon products and get access to a whole new repository of stuff to make videos about. Now, a lot of it, you're not going to know how to use it. And so certainly some people might feel comfortable making a video on it, but I don't really want to just make a video about something I don't have any clue about. But you end up using a lot of this stuff while you're there. You're there for, I think I was there for 3 or 4 days. I mean, I used much of the stuff that's there. Now, here's the challenge that I've always run into. It's hard to find time when you're at an Airbnb to make these videos. You're there with family, you're there for work. If in my case, I was there for a work event, but I'm trying to keep up with the agency in the spare time I have while I'm doing the mastermind stuff. It's just a very busy time. You're on a family vacation. You don't really want to tell the family, hey, hold on, I got to get a couple hours to make an Amazon influencer videos. So what I was up against it on the last day. I just thought I'd share this interesting strategy. I was up against it the last day. I was checking out that day. It was last Friday. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's some amazing stuff I've been using here. There's like a $500 coffee espresso machine. There's like, there was a $180 mirror. There's like some really cool stuff that I was using that like this would make good Amazon influencer videos, but I just was not going to have the time. So here's what I did. In a haste, I just recorded myself, for example, using the espresso machine in the final morning. I just recorded while I was making. I didn't do voiceover. I didn't do any audio. I didn't take the time to think about it. I was just like, I'm just going to record a bunch of stuff of me using it. And then I just left it on my phone. I went and recorded the mirror, just super quick, a couple minutes, different angles, all that, moved on. I just ran through the Airbnb and recorded a bunch of what we would call in the industry B-roll. and I got it. So it took me like 10 minutes to record, whatever, 5 of these things. I think I probably did about 15 minutes worth of video if you look at the timestamps. And then I came home, and now, yes, this took more time, but I recorded audio, an organized script, and I did cut 3 or 4 of those B-roll videos together to make about 6 or 7 Amazon influencer videos.
Nice.
And so I uploaded, I think it was 7, I should know. It was either 6 or 7 Amazon influencer videos. They took a lot more time, right? Each one probably took 20 minutes to make instead of my usual 2 to 5 minutes to make. But it's interesting because I think that if I look back on it, if one of those catches, like my last one did, it's going to totally be worth it. And there are some really nice products in there. These aren't just, your $10 tchotchkes. There were some really nice products, and I was pretty focused on. I think that's interesting, especially for people who perhaps have a hard time making videos and talking in the moment. I wouldn't want to make 1,000 videos that way, but that is a good way to get off the ground and get started on making influencer videos. And maybe then after your first 25, your first 50, now you're more comfortable, and then you can move into just talking while you're recording them. It gave me the chance to upload 7 videos about some awesome products that I wouldn't have had time to otherwise.
Yeah, I like that strategy a lot, for a variety of reasons, but it might be a good way for people that aren't quite as comfortable on camera to be able to just record, sit down, type it out, a script, and then do the voiceover like you said. And even if you're just getting started, you figure if you do 50 videos in that way, yeah, maybe it takes a little bit longer, but at that point, hopefully you're making, I don't know, a couple $100 a month at least.
Yeah, you get the momentum going, and then, the momentum creates more impetus for you to kind of get better at it. And practice makes perfect, per se. So you just get better and better, and you just keep going. But anyways, influencer's going very well. It's almost the end of May. I'm going to report next week on the numbers. We'll talk about influencer numbers next week on the podcast, and then the following week I'll circle back on my newsletter, which is doing very well, by the way. But I can only there's so much I can talk about this week, and we burned all of our time on Google WikiLeaks here, so I'll leave it at that. Cool strategy for people who are struggling maybe with making videos, people who are thinking about traveling to some Airbnbs this summer. Cool strategy to use. We'll talk numbers next week, and then we'll get a newsletter again because it's going very well.
Awesome. That's good. So yeah, stick around for that. And, we're kind of getting down here to the wire. So these might have to be a couple of short, weird niche sites. We'll try to do, 3-4 minutes per site here. So I'll just jump right into it. So the weird niche site that I have is searchcraigslist.org. And it's exactly as it sounds like. It's essentially a search engine for Craigslist, right? So if we search for, I don't even know why this popped into my head, but if we search for bowling balls, is there any bowling balls? It looks like an ad at the top. I don't think that's...
Yeah, I get the same thing. I think it's an ad. There you go.
Okay, you've got a whole above the fold is all ads, but then here you go. You could get a bunch of bowling balls, that sort of gives some results. It doesn't even look like it lets you search by location, which
I was about to ask
kind of
you
the
that.
whole point of Craigslist. So there's that, and then I noticed, just moving quickly, I noticed that they are a friend of Craig's Cars, all Craigslist cars. So if you click on this link down here, this takes you to another website where it's craigscars.net. And so clearly they probably have seen that a lot of people are searching, for cars, right? I'm not really looking at anything. But it'll pull back again. It's got all the ads at the top, and then
you look good in a Chrysler 200 series.
I could see myself cruising around downtown in that. Why not? But just small shout out to my own history. I saw this and I was like, I've got to share this. But back in the day, we are talking probably 2009, 2000, maybe 10.
Okay. Yeah.
I had a niche website, CraigslistCars.net, maybe, or something. It was Craigslist Cars something, right? And it did really well for a while. It was one of my sites that was, it was like $50 a day or something, all from Google AdSense. I was ranking on the first page of Google, And anyways, that's just a fun story from my history. I used to have all these random small niche websites that got hit by like the Panda update, which deservedly so, right? Back in the day, it was like a one-page website,
Oh yeah.
basically tell you, hey, if you want to buy a Craigslist car, here's a link to Craigslist, type thing. Anyway, so that's just fun from my own personal history. But if we look at the traffic, this is the search. So if I go to searchcraigslist.org, the total traffic is a little over 100,000 visitors a month. It's 125,000 last month, about 109,000 this month. And I don't have the Ahrefs pulled up, I don't think, but it was minimal. It's not ranking for a lot of things in Google. A lot of it is, well, I guess apparently it does say, at least according to SimilarWeb, that a lot of it is coming from search, but it's a mix of direct and search traffic. So there you have it. Just kind of an interesting, are there any other businesses you could create like a mini search engine for, or a way to make other websites easier to navigate?
I mean, I haven't looked at it in depth, I've just seen it for the first time, but I mean, is it basically just sitting on top of Craigslist search function? Like, is it an API pull? I mean, this is the simplest thing I've ever seen, right?
Yeah, that's kind of, I mean, that's what it looks like.
I mean, what
a
brilliant idea. You just throw a ton of ads on and API out the search results, and, kind of your second website, Craig's Cars?
Craig's Cars.
That's basically just taking an isolated part of Craigslist and bringing a better user experience to it. I mean, brilliant.
Yeah. No, kind of brilliant. They're probably not raking in the money, but if they really are getting 100,000 visitors a month, right, they might be making 1,500, 2,000 a month off a simple little sort of search function.
I don't know. With that UI, beautiful UI that they have. You never know.
They're one up in Craigslist.
That's true.
What they're doing.
That is actually a fair point.
They made it blue instead of red and gray or whatever. Anyways, so that's all I got. Maybe we'll end it there, and I'll let you take a couple minutes for yours.
All right. My just hitting it hard because of time. My weird niche was actually given to me last week by Tony Hill, friend of the podcast. He was one of the people I was working with last week, and he had this one. I love it. I actually really like this. I've used this weird niche site several times this week. It is tree.fm. You're like, what the heck is tree.fm? So this is a repository, a database of sound bites from nature. And so you can put this on as background music. You can listen to a random forest, as they say. And so it's a bit glitchy. I found a lot of the sounds didn't load, but basically you just, click that button or listen to a random forest, and you don't have to actually press play on it, but it'll take you to something that someone has uploaded from like a forest in Poland or a forest in Germany or a forest. Here we have one. Where's this one? Estonia. There you go.
That's a nice sound.
Isn't that pretty, right? It's very pretty. I have put this on several times as background music because I'm a nature lover. So this is, I find many of them to be quite peaceful. You got wind blowing through the trees in some, you got birds in others, you got, leaves rustling. It's, it's in the world. I know background music is incredibly popular on YouTube, and this is kind of isolated it to specifically from forests.
This is pretty cool. I mean, you just click next, and you don't know where it's going to pop up. We're in Fiji now.
Yeah, we're in Fiji. And they got a beautiful photo, by the way. I don't know if they're pulling their photos, but all the photos are just gorgeous. They're not these, knockoffs. Couple of details about it. It is a DR50, so plenty of people have enjoyed it. Plenty of people have linked to it. Unfortunately, it doesn't take long to use the website to realize that there's no way it's going to rank for much because it's like the thinnest content known to man. So it only ranks for about 100 keywords. Now, interestingly, though, if you go to their About page, Spencer, they do have this line that says, get your brand in front of 12,000 to 100,000 nature-loving visitors per month.
So
there you go, right there.
Stats there, right?
So that might tell us a bit about the traffic. I'd say that the traffic looks a lot like your chart from Reddit and Facebook traffic you shared earlier. It looks pretty up and down if it ranges from 12 to 100,000 a month.
Yeah, but I don't know if SimilarWeb is 100% accurate, but I did pull it up on SimilarWeb, and it shows that up to 250 thousand visitors. So maybe it's grown a little since they created their About page.
Yeah, well, that would be amazing because I mean, so they don't have ads on it. I checked on mobile. I checked on desktop. All they have is a donate button. That donate button is on every screen. It's small and in the upper left, visible desktop, visible on mobile. And all it takes you to is just buy, the whole buy me a coffee thing, which is like $1, $3, and $5. I mean, you've got to imagine time on site is pretty high per visitor. You're going to press play and you're going to sit there and you're going to listen to it. And you got to imagine they do okay with programmatic ads.
Yeah, you would think so.
There's no reason why they can't pull a YouTube. You have to listen to a 5-second ad before you can listen to the audio. There's no reason why you can't have ads on the page sitting over top of some of those nature pictures, just a play button. I would think you could generate a decent amount of money with that sort of traffic, and the fact that it makes a lot of sense that time on page is probably pretty high.
So when you listen to this, do you just pull it up in the background while you're working? Is that kind of ambient noise?
Yep. That's exactly right.
Cool. That's cool. I like it. I may actually use this.
That's what I mean. Sometimes, I like to mix up my music. I listen to classical music. Some days I'll listen to a little bit more kind of house style, a little bit more peppy. Man, I've turned this on a couple times and I was really enjoying the different sounds of nature. Seriously.
So tree.fm. That's a good find. I like it. Yeah, kind of a unique niche site. I don't know. I love talking about these because it always just spurred like new ideas of like, you could create a website on sounds.
I'm thinking beach.fm.
There you go. I mean, it's working here.
You could do you could do New York City.fm, right? Like city life. You could do sorry, I'm just giving away all my good ideas
50
now.
Different. Yeah. Careful. All sorts of sounds.
Yeah. Some people like the urban setting. There's some people like, geez, I'm a forest guy, so this is awesome. But there you have it.
There you go. All right. Well, you start pumping out those sites and let us know how they go, Jared.
50 live before this podcast goes live tomorrow.
That's right. Very good. Well, we certainly covered the news. There's a big leak, Google Documents that we covered. So I'm 100% sure we're going to be referencing these documents in this leak for months and years to come. So
I had one thing I just want to say, which is of any week, if you're listening and you're watching on YouTube, this is a great week to add a comment. I'm not trying to get comments for the sake of comments. Like this is it kind of feels like a community week, a week where we as a community can kind of respond and discuss and all that. So would love to hear your comments on the things we talked about or anything you saw that we didn't discuss or just overall feelings about, kind of what this reveals to you or changes for you.
Yeah, great point. We'd love to respond to your comments. And if you find anything new that we didn't talk about, we'd love to, read about that in the comments as well. So thank you so much, everybody, for listening. Appreciate your time and hope you guys have a great week.
Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.
Hey there. Thanks so much for listening to the Niche Pursuits podcast. Did you know that Jared and I are members of a private group called the Niche Pursuits Community? And today I want to share with you how you can join for just $1. The Niche Pursuits Community is a private members area for niche online publishers to mastermind and grow their businesses together. We hold weekly calls live with experts where you can ask questions. These experts share tips on Amazon Influencer, Google Discover, building email newsletters, getting traffic from Facebook, and other strategies to grow your online business. You'll also be assigned a mastermind group of 4 or 5 other people in a similar stage in business as you. Dive deep into your business issues and get your problems solved. If you use coupon code PODCAST at checkout, you'll get your first month for just $1. Go ahead and give it a try. Come join me, Jared, and lots of other digital entrepreneurs inside my private group at community.nichepursuits.com. And be sure to use coupon code PODCAST. I'll see you on the inside.